We're in this, ladies and gentlemen. Gonna make this rock. What the? Gonna have a special guest on. You guys probably know who it is. But you're gonna find out momentarily, ladies and gentlemen. Hope everybody's having a good day. Happy New Year. Happy holidays. Whatever you guys celebrate and whatever you do. What's up, G? What's up, player? We're gonna have a guest on. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna get him invited in right now. Don't go nowhere, ladies and gentlemen. Hold the phone. I just got clear. Up there he is. Oh shit! Don't do that. What? It's not letting me send the invitation. That makes no sense. Hold on. I like that. Merry Christmas, Kyle. That's pretty funny. Ladies and gentlemen. Oh, El Jefe.
Hey,
What's up, boss?
how are you?
Another day in paradise, bro. How about yourself?
Yeah, pretty good.
The season finished okay, right? Not as good as you wanted, but
Yeah, the quarterfinals. Quarterfinals is good. Obviously, it's very competitive. PKs is a tough way to go out.
yeah.
But we did well. We did well. Proud of the guys, and wouldn't be any more proud if they had won the whole thing. Honestly, I think that they've done a tremendous job. To be fair.
And you got. If I remember correctly, you guys were winning 1-0, right? And then they scored like last minute or something.
Yeah, we were winning 1-0, and we had a bit of a crazy goal right before the first half ended. That was kind of I don't know, it was kind of a shambles the way that it all happened. So it was one of those kind of freak goals that happen on occasion, and I haven't seen one like that for my team in 10 years. But so yeah, not the best time to give one up, but I mean, that's football. Sometimes things bounce your way, and sometimes they don't.
Right. It's crazy, man. And what's next for you now that the college season has finished? What like I don't think people really know, but what do you do now that the season's finished?
Recruit.
Oh,
Yeah.
recruit, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of recruiting still to do. Still looking at a lot of different people that we're considering for the program,
Yeah.
and then just getting ready for the spring as well. Prepping for that, and we got a lot of individual development plans to put together, and we'll have a few spring matches. We have some things with the team as a collective that we want to do as
Right.
well. So there's still a lot of work to do. It's a process, and I think the spring is kind of I think the spring's the best time where we really cement our culture. I think the fall is where we execute our culture, and the spring is where we we really cultivate the ground and plant the seeds and water those, and then we see the fruits of that labor when we get to the fall. If you wait till the fall, then it's usually a little too late.
So definitely too late. Now, when you talk about recruiting, is that you going out and doing the recruiting, or is it your staff, or is it a combination of both? How does that work in your environment?
Yeah, team effort, 100% a team effort. I've got 450 emails that I was in my inbox right now. So yeah, I mean, you can't do it by yourself.
Right, impossible.
You can try, but you can't do it by yourself. And then of course there's a lot of really good people that we're connected with, and that we network with, and people that we trust that we'll call and we'll talk to about players, and try and put some pieces together. So yeah, it's really just a bunch of different avenues, and then all of us trying to chip in and do what we can to weigh in and give our perspective on who we think might be the best fit for what we're trying to do.
Right. And then remind me, because we talked about it last time, but there's some people in here that probably don't know and don't remember.
Sure.
Obviously, you're Coach Safe Alsphere. You're with Dalton State College. How many players are you going to look at in a calendar year? And then how many players are you going to, trickle it down? So you're going to look at X number of players in a calendar year. You're going to break it down to about whatever number, and then how many you actually select and you anticipate?
Yeah, so I mean, if you think about what I just said a minute ago with the 450 emails,
right?
About 350 of those are players. So there's some junk in there, and then there's some like administrative things that we need to take care of. But yeah, about 350 of those are players, and that's accumulated over just the past few weeks. So we will get thousands of players that we will at least pre-screen. You don't get to watch everything. But you'll try and read an email and see what it looks like, or you'll talk to your network and see what some of those things look like, and if they look interesting, then we'll further pursue them. But yeah, I mean, it's in the thousands over the course of the year. It's in the tens of thousands of CVs, let's say, that come across the desk, and then you're looking to narrow it down to maybe usually narrow it down to you probably Zoom with somewhere around like 50 to 75
Mm.
a year that you actually Zoom with, and you actually, like spend a few minutes with them and try and figure out what they're all
Right.
about. If they're a good fit. And then after that Zoom, yeah, you're probably looking at, uh, making offers to, I don't know, 20,
Wow.
if you're lucky. And if you can find 20 that you're willing to make an offer to, that's tremendous.
Ha.
So I'm trying to be generous with the numbers to
Right.
not
Right. Right.
have too much hope here. But so yeah, and then you might sign, you might actually sign 8 of those to come in, something like that.
Wow. So tens of thousands you start with. You said you Zoom about 75, right?
Probably, yeah, probably. Now I don't Zoom
Right.
all of them.
Right.
Amongst by the time our staff has gotten through everything, it probably amounts to that.
That's crazy. And then you said you'll offer around 20 and then you'll get about 8, right? If I got that correct.
Yeah, our ratio is usually really good. If we offer, we're probably in the 90% of
Wow.
what we offer is what we get.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I'm thinking maybe 20 that are actually like we're prepared to maybe offer.
There you go.
We
Okay.
do or not, we'll see, and then we might net around 8 of those. So
That's crazy. That's, I mean, for anybody that's listening, and I hope you understand what that means. So he's going to look at, not just him, but his staff, the group are going to look at tens of thousands of kids. They're going to get the CV through the door, whatever, maybe a highlight video or something, right?
hmm
And then they're going to break that down to about 75. So can you kind of explain from your perspective the Zoom call? Because this is something that's probably new to a lot of people and probably don't realize the power of Zoom or virtual conversation like this. So can you kind of expand on how Zoom works when you're in a call with a prospective student athlete?
Yeah, well, I can tell you how we do it, and I really like the way that our system kind of works. Is they will actually Zoom with usually with Coach
Mm.
Fabian. So very rarely do players Zoom with me first. If they do, then it's probably some scheduling conflict with Coach Fabian.
Mm.
So they Zoom with me first, but usually they will Zoom with him, and if he likes them, then I will Zoom with them and kind of see if we can put something together and if that's what we want to do. But I think the process in terms of how it actually works, him and I are really just trying to get to know people, and we're trying to figure out what they're all about.
Mm.
So our culture is really important to us, so we're trying to assess, which is really difficult. We're trying to assess, and it's difficult for the players as well.
Sure.
It's difficult for everybody, really. You've got a 30-minute. I think with Coach Fabian, he usually Zooms with them for about 40 minutes to an
Okay.
hour. So he's got 40 minutes to an hour to kind of assess whether they should kind of move to the next step, if you will.
Right.
If you check those boxes of like, hey, does this person have a good understanding of what they want to do, what their goals are,
Okay.
how they're going to achieve them, the areas that they need to improve, the things that they're looking for in a staff, the things that they're looking for in a team,
Hmm.
the things that they're looking for in an environment. Those are a lot of the things that we're looking for and that we're asking those questions. And it's really important for us to see how people respond. Obviously, the way that they respond dictates a lot of what's going to happen next.
And that's interesting. So I would love to get your perspective on this in terms of when you're talking to a prospective student athlete, like how upfront are you, or maybe Coach Fabian is, when it comes to the actual meeting? Because like most people don't realize this, that how many players are on your roster from the men's side?
Around
So
30.
you got 30 players. So obviously you can only have 11 play plus subs. How honest are you guys with them in that first to that, or close when you get to offer? How does that process work for people that don't know?
Yeah, so I think for him, we're obviously we're very straightforward with what we're looking for, but I think for him is trying to gather a lot of information and try and understand, like, is this a person that would be a good fit? He
Right.
will already have assessed, can this person play? So by the time that we'll get to a Zoom, we will already have corresponded with them via email. We will have watched a highlight tape, and we will have watched a full game, a minimum of one, and then
Mm.
we get to that Zoom. So the kind of the footballing part is pretty well squared away by that point. So then it's a matter of, like, who is this person? Are
Gotcha.
they going to fit into our culture? Can we coach them? So he's trying to assess a lot of those things. Afterwards, if he thinks that that's a good person to speak to me, then he will tell me, and then I might schedule a Zoom for the next day or the next 48 hours or
Right.
something like that.
Right.
And then that's where I'm like, hey, here's where it is. Here's
Here's the
what
truth.
is going on.
Right.
Yeah, here's exactly where things lie. And but it's kind of him figuring out, are they really for us? And then me going to that person and saying, here's what we're doing, here's what we're looking for. What do you think about those things? And then I'm very curious to see how people respond.
Yeah, that's interesting. So basically, what you're telling me is, and for people listening, Fabian's like the screen. They got to pass Fabian's interview to get to you, and then at your point, then you're like, okay, this guy might be a good fit or might not be a good fit. So what happens? Like, let's say during the conversation, and maybe you have a story you can tell about it, but like, what do you want to see from that interview when you're on Zoom with somebody? Like when you're so he's already passed Fabian's part. Now they've gotten to you. What do you want to see from that player in terms of, are they checking your boxes to make it to your program?
That's a great question. For me, I want to see somebody that has a clear understanding of who they are and what they're looking to do and how they're going to achieve those things.
Mm.
So whether that is incredibly I guess in depth and accurate and logical, et cetera, et cetera. I will help people. That's my job, is to help guide people
Right.
based on what their dreams are. But I like to speak to people, and I'm looking for people that are clear and articulate about what they want to do, and about how they think they're going to get there. So to me, it's less about what they're saying and more about how they're saying it. Do they have a clear understanding of what they're looking for and who they are and who they're trying to be? And if they do, that's somebody I'm really interested in working with. And if they don't, it's not to say that I'm not interested in working with them, but it just kind of depends on some of the other variables. But you want to find people who are kind of well put together and have a good idea of what they're looking for. And if they do, then you think you got a chance to help them.
Got it. Now, this might, if you can't answer it, it's okay. But I'm just curious, what has been something that somebody said, or I guess I really should say, have you ever ended a Zoom in like the first 5 to 10 minutes because you're just like, hey, bro, this is not a good fit. Thanks. Has it ever happened? Or like maybe a crazy story, maybe from a Zoom call that you had, and you're like, dude, what are you talking about? Like, this is not going to work.
I think people, not really. People usually play along.
Fair enough.
So they play the part and play along pretty well. But I don't make any bones about being pretty straightforward about, one of the things that I'll tell people that we're looking for is, because like I said, when they come to me, then it's kind of like, hey, we're talking, like
We're serious.
yeah, here's where it is. And so part of where it is like, I'm looking for people that are going to come in, they're going to work really hard.
Yeah.
They're humble, they're driven, and they're ready to help push the bus, not just ride the bus, but push the bus, something like that. And based on how that person responds, like I'll get a decent indication of where they are. And then I usually say, I mean, almost exclusively, I'll say something like this too. After I describe what we're looking for and what the environment is like, I will say something like, if that's what you're looking for, and if that's what you're interested in, this will be a great place for you and you will love it.
Right.
If those are things that you're not interested in, you should definitely not come here.
Hey.
Like I just make it very easy for them, because I don't want someone to come here that doesn't want to be here, and I don't want to have that person here as well. Like it's not a good fit for either of us. So by that time, you kind of get, you read a little bit of a body language, but it's more about how they respond.
Right.
Some people respond while you're saying those things, and they're just sitting there like this. Like they're just about it,
Right.
And then some people are just listening very carefully, and then they might say, Coach, that's exactly what I'm looking for. Like I'm very interested in that type of environment. That's the type of environment I need. And then some people might just go, okay, yeah, good to know. And now that doesn't mean that they don't want it, but it's just, you're 100%. You're just reading people and you're trying to assess where they are.
Right.
And like I said, it's difficult for them too. I feel for players. Like I have empathy for the situation that they're in. They've got like an hour as well, or with me less. They've got like 20 minutes, 25 minutes on a Zoom with me. But they've got this 20, 25 minutes to assess, like, is this the guy that's going to help me achieve my dreams? So
fair point.
Yeah, like it's not easy for them. And then you've got, their families are in the same boat as well. Their families are like, is this the guy that's going to help take care of, my kid? And so it's, you try and make things clear and simple for people. And if their core values align with those things, then it's like they can feel comfortable about moving forward. And if they don't, then they know like it's probably not a good fit.
Okay, so you said something that I would like to dive into a little bit more when you talked about parents. So when you're on the Zoom call, so whether it's Fabian or you, are parents in the conversation? Like, are they around? Are they a part of it? Or are they on the outside? Or how does that work with you when a Zoom call pops in?
Yeah. Both.
Both.
Sometimes they're on, sometimes they're not. I had one today that the parent wasn't on. I had one last week that the parent was on. I had one the week before where both parents were on. Um, so yeah,
Bears.
it varies, but yeah, the parents don't do usually the parents that I've spoken to for the most part have been really good. They don't do a lot of the talking. They let their child do a lot of the talking, and then I will ask the parents some questions
Mm.
because I'm curious to know what they're about and stuff like that. Um,
Can you give an example of a question you would ask a parent?
well, it always starts with something like who are you? What do you do? Where are you from? If mom and dad are on, like how long you've been married, how many kids do you have, what do you do for work? Trying to figure out like what it is that they do because again, it tells you a lot. I'll give you an example. So there was a parent that I was speaking to, and the mom and dad were both teachers.
Mm.
And I was like, well, God bless you, because it's really difficult to be a teacher. I was an education major, so I
Right.
had I did some internships in education, so I understand how difficult that job is, and of course, it dictates a lot of like how our country develops, as they're
Right.
developing the hearts and minds of young people. So that I think that tells me that can tell me something about a parent. If I've zoomed with some, and their parents are doctors or lawyers,
Mm.
and so you can kind of see that come out in the way that they do things. Like they're very specific in the ways that they do some of their things because they will have to be very organized, and will have to have a clear plan of like how they go about whether a court
Right.
case or doing surgery or something like that. So um, that will tell you a little bit about how they've dealt with their child.
Mm.
And if you can see some of those things
Resemblance.
being resembled
Yeah.
in their child, that tells you a lot. Like if you've got a teacher, you've got these people that are working like terribly hard to educate kids, and then you look at their kid and like their kid's a hard worker, and you're like, yeah, that's
Makes
because in
sense.
their house this is what's happening. And then the same thing with like the lawyer or the doctor or other jobs where you have to be incredibly, you have to have a very clear vision of like what you're trying to accomplish if you want to be successful. If you can see some of that in the kid and the way that they articulate what their goals are, you're like, okay, like these are the knowledge that the parents have is being passed to their children in their home.
Right.
This is the foundation that I feel like I work with best, is when they've been brought up in a home. Now it doesn't have to be two parents. So some of the best experiences I've had have come from kids coming from really poor areas,
Mm.
single parents, all types of no parents, a variety of backgrounds. But it's just important to see like, do they have values?
Right.
My mom raised two boys. She's a single mom,
Mm.
and she instilled some core values, and those things helped me tremendously. So if I'm talking to a kid, and I can see these core values that this parent or parents or grandparents, whoever raised them, passed on to them. Yeah, man, like that's good stuff.
That's well, and basically what I got from that is it's not just about what you do on the field. It's your background, it's your culture, it's who you are as a person. So it's that, like, I think it's kind of cliche to say, but the holistic approach.
Hmm.
And you're looking at more than just what they provide to the field. What do they bring to the program and the college? Because you don't want to make it. I'm assuming, correct me if I'm wrong, but you don't want somebody that's like toxic or going to bring in a bad feeling, or kind of mess up the dressing room, so to speak, when it comes to your team, because then you might lose control, and obviously you got to keep control to have a successful program. Is that something you would agree with?
Well, I mean, without a doubt,
Right.
without a doubt, you're again, if you think about the cycle. So if the cycle that I explained to you a little bit earlier, if
Yeah.
the spring is about like planting the seeds of the culture
Mm.
and watering those seeds, and kind of tending to those things, then the people that I bring in are the ones that are either going to plant those seeds and water
Right.
them, or they're not. Like this is
Mm.
not a job where I can do all of those things, or me and my staff can do all those things.
Right.
It's the collective effort of everybody. So to your point, if there's one person that's not going to plant their seed, well, that's one less seed that we have in our culture that we should have, right? So
Right.
like somebody else is out there that would have done that job, and it's our job to have the type of discernment to choose wisely enough to bring those people here, and then it's those people's job to execute the idea of like, yeah, we brought you here, so please do this job that we're asking you, and then it's our job to help guide them as they go through that process, and because they're young people, so it's a process. It certainly is, but yeah, it's going to be, you got to get the right people in. It's very difficult to, it's, one of the hardest things in the world to do is to change the hearts and minds of people, right?
I'd agree.
Like soccer coach, school teacher,
Right.
bus driver, doesn't matter. Like that's one of the most difficult things in the world to do, and that's essentially, we're trying to influence the hearts and minds of people here. I can't change them. I can influence them, but I can't change them. So if they're willing to change, then I can influence them.
Right.
If they're not willing to change, doesn't happen. Yeah.
That's fair. Now, just to summarize to make sure everybody understands, so you have Coach Fabian doing the Zoom call. How does somebody know that they're actually being recruited by you? Like, and then they're getting that. Is it an email that you guys send? You've already reviewed their CV. Maybe I think you said a highlight film or highlight clips, and then a game film, and then you guys send them an email saying, "Hey, we'd like to set up a Zoom," or how does that actually happen in that process?
Yeah, like you mean if we're being like properly actively recruiting them? I think that a kid could walk away and say, "Hey, I think they could say I'm being recruited at any point in time that they want to say, even if we respond to an email, they technically could say that. I think that's poor form, but they could say that. If
Right.
a kid wants to know, trying to look at it from the recruit side of it, like if you're a recruit and you want to know, man, does this place have a real interest in me? If we're going to get on a Zoom call with you, there is a genuine interest to know something about you. And then if I'm going to get on a Zoom with you, there's a significant interest in trying to put things together. And then obviously if we make the offer, that's, everybody knows that part.
And the reason why I asked you that question is because it's funny. I've actually had kids that I know personally or I've seen online, and they go, "Oh, I'm being recruited," and they post a picture of like the ID camp they got invited to.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, those are probably bigger programs. They're probably D1s, right? But from your perspective, if a kid gets that letter that says, "Hey, you've been recruited to not recruited, but you've been invited to our camp,"
Mm-hmm.
is that an actual recruiting piece in terms of like you're actually being evaluated? Or is that just kind of an open-ended loophole of come to our camp?
It depends. Everybody does it differently. So like when we've done ID camps, and I did ID camps, I think twice a year at Florida College. Man, that was fantastic. We recruited and signed a minimum of one kid every camp that we had. And let me tell you, some of those kids that we signed ended up being tremendously important to our success on the field.
Awesome.
And even the ones that we signed that maybe weren't as successful on the field as others were important to our culture and our environment, and maybe would come off the bench and contribute, et cetera, et cetera. So for us, it's something really useful that we enjoy. I do think that if you're going to show up and there's going to be 150 kids, 250 kids at a camp, it's tough. Like it's tough. Is it possible? Sure. I think at Florida College, we like to have around, we always had around like 40, 45. Yeah, because, listen, we want to play 11v11, and we maybe want to have like 3 teams or 4 teams of 11s. 4 teams of 11s, I think you can manage. So by the time you've gone through your entire day of camp, where you've done your small-sided games, maybe you've done your technical work, et cetera, and you get to 11s, then yeah, I mean, if they're going to play like a 12-minute half, and then bring on the other 2 teams and let them play a 12-minute half, and then let those teams compete against each other like that, swap and stuff like that. That makes sense to me.
Right.
You can kind of see everybody. But I've had it happen. I've had it happen with open tryouts, for example, where we might have too many, and then like maybe we can't do. Maybe we have 3 teams of 11 plus 5 guys. So now guys have to sub in.
That's hard.
It's hard. You just split it. You're splitting time. You're having to worry about your subs, and one of the last things you're thinking about is this kid a real player? I mean, they'd have to do something incredible to make themselves known, and that's not really fair. So we like the if we're at 50, or under, we're very
Good.
comfortable. Anything over 50, I think, starts to get really difficult to manage unless you've got a staff of if you've got a staff of like 6 people, uh, which we do. We have a big staff. We could manage it, but we want to give that individual time if people are going to come pay and be in our environment.
That's interesting. And I'm glad you kind of gave that perspective, because you gave what a lot of people don't understand, especially from my experience. When people go to a big D1, there's going to be 200 kids in an environment, and they're probably not getting the same looks that you're talking about when there's 50 guys. But obviously, that's a bigger school with, I don't want to say more reach, but I think most kids say, hey, I want to go D1. And they don't really understand necessarily the levels. And I always tell people, like, look, NAIA D3, D2, I mean, obviously the only main difference, correct me if I'm wrong, is just the financial investment from the schools into the athletic programs. But there's plenty of D3s or NAIAs or D2s that can beat even good D1s all the time. It's just they're just in different divisions. So I think it's a little hectic. But I wanted to talk about, I want to kind of switch it in a different direction. And I want to get your opinion on some of the videos that I posted with you, with your permission, of course, and how you handled, because we had that conversation. You're like, hey, maybe you should tag me. I'm like, bro, I don't know if you're going to want to be tagged, because some of these comments you're going to see are crazy, and I want to get your kind of perspective on like the comments and stuff that you kind of saw from that. What is your take? Just your feedback on it would be great.
Yeah, so I'll give you 2 avenues. I think the one where there's a lot of there's negative comments. Um, it's a game of opinions, and
Mm.
again, like that's the beauty of the United States as well, is that it's a country of opinions.
Fair
So,
enough.
yeah, I think that that's totally fine. Where I think it's sad on the flip, so on the flip side of this, where I think it's sad is that uh, there are some coaches, and I'm friends with some of the best friends I have are other college coaches, and there's a few of them that I think would really, really, really genuinely love to help educate people, and just help them understand the process. Kind of like what we're doing right now. Just
Right.
understand how they can put themselves in the best light that they can to achieve their dreams.
Mm.
And now that may not be at their particular school, right? But just in general, just in general to
Sure.
understand the
Right.
process. And I think that was kind of the thinking was like, hey, man, listen, if people want to reach out to me and to ask some questions about how they can understand the process of recruiting better, or college selection or whatever, I'm happy to help people. It doesn't have to be just to Dalton State, because the reality is, like, they may or may not be a fit for Dalton
Sure.
State. So the point is to help people, and I think that if you're in the business of helping people, then you're gonna do well no matter what you do. So that's the business that we try and be in. So I think for, when people have like their say or whatever, or have a go or whatever, like it's their opinion, they can do what they want. And some people are, you can't say if people are necessarily right or wrong. The proof's in the pudding, like
Amen.
how well can you do? Can you develop players? Can you win games? Can you recruit properly, et cetera, et cetera? And if you can, then that speaks for itself. But I think the other side of it is, like, I would really love to help some people, because there are some people out there that just don't have the guidance that they need. I think the guidance, I think, is unbelievably important. We just sent Josh Ramos pro, and Josh Ramos was a great player before he got to Dalton State. So after his 2 years here now, is he a more pro-ready player? Without a doubt, without a doubt. But his potential was there before he came here. So
Mm.
what we did was help him realize his potential. And the point that I'm trying to make is that he needed help. He needed mentorship. He needed
Mm.
guidance. He needed development. If he needs that, that's indicative of pretty much every other player that is out there. And a lot of these players, some of them, let's say, will have that. They will have some guidance, some really good mentorship, and some really good guidance from maybe a coach, maybe a parent, maybe someone like you, who's out there and helping people understand what this thing is really all
Right.
about. Then there's a lot of people that don't have that, right? And I think people are starving for that. So I think when you get an opportunity to speak to somebody that cares, then like that, you should take that. I try and do that as much as I can,
Right.
whether a parent or another coach, or just another human being in general. And I think that, at the end of the day, that's what we all have to remember, is that that's what it's about.
Well, and it's funny because I can't promise, or not promise, but I can't say that all the content that I post, whether people agree with it or not, is perfect. I mean, obviously you're trying to collect the best sound bites. So like one of the clips that I posted with you, I don't remember exactly which video it was, but it was, if you dribble like that with my guys, you're going to get cracked.
Hmm.
And everybody couldn't believe that you said that. And I'm like, it's true. If you go to the next level and, it's quote unquote over dribbling, if you go over dribbling, you will absolutely get cracked. It doesn't matter if it's college. It doesn't matter if it's pro. People don't like to see people dribbling like that. And if you make the wrong decision while dribbling, you will completely get cracked. And I just found it funny because the amount of comments that were coming in there, and he's like, "Oh, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about," and that's why I made the comment too. I'm like, "Dude, you don't want your name on this because if your name goes on this, people are gonna just like try and like, no joke, bro. You'll find this actually funny. I've had people find my number and call me
Yeah,
and
that's
say, "Kyle, you're so full of shit about what you put." And I'm like, you know what? If that's the cost of what I have to do to try and help people, then no problem. But it's funny. Like the amount of stuff that people will do and say is kind of crazy. So I just wanted to at least put that out there so because I'm with you, bro, and it's nuts to see. And I wanted that's one of the things I want to talk about with Josh. I got to meet him, I guess 2 years ago at this point. I guess when he first came in, right?
right.
And yeah, I mean, you could tell he was a beast, especially physically. He had very good skill, good ability, athletic as hell, and needed that fine tuning. And then when you told me that he was signing pro, and I'm like, well, Safe knows what he's doing, and more people need to put respect on your name and what you're doing. And I think it's a good opportunity for people to kind of see that like what to do and help people get to the next level. That's what you do. I think somebody says they have a question. Hold on, let me see. Uh, Somebody just tagged me in this. I'm just trying to find this dude's question. Never mind, I can't see it. So if you want to write your question, Diego, so I can hopefully or we can try and answer for you. We don't have a lot of time left, but throw it out there. And then somebody said, at what age do you think it's important for kids to be playing ECNL or GA? Is it teenage years or earlier? I'll leave that to you. I can give my opinion as well, but you're on this call, so I'll let you give your thoughts on that if you'd like.
I it's again, it's an opinionated based question, and I try and stick with the evidence base as much as I
There you go.
can. I actually, in my master's degree, I did a master's degree in soccer coaching education at Ohio University, and my final paper was on whether it's better to take a specific singular sport approach as a child to reach the pro level, or to have a multi-sport approach growing
Right.
up to reach the pro level. And the evidence pretty much bears it out that it's indifferent. There are plenty of people that played multiple sports growing up that are pros, and there are plenty that only played one sport and are pros. So I see this question very similar. As far as I'm concerned, I think that by the time you would get to an age where it's like you're going to be maybe on more of a regional stage, that's probably where you for that reason, and perhaps maybe the coaching. It depends. It depends on the club, but I think for the exposure aspect, whenever you're going to start playing in a bigger region, then maybe that makes some sense. Uh, I think when you're younger, so if it depends on what age this person's talking about, but like nobody. I'm not recruiting you when you're 12. I'm not recruiting you when you're 14. Even when you're 16, like we've looked at some of your players that were 16, and I'm like, I can't wait to see how they develop in a year. It's a tremendous developmental period.
Mm,
So for me, it's like less about whether they're for their ECNL and more about like, well, where are they today? And
mm,
then I'd like to see them in 6 months because, as we know, kids develop like they're developing quickly. Things
right.
don't set in until you're like 25, and then now all of a sudden you got what you got.
Mm,
And that's the same thing with their brain development as well. We're not just talking about their skills. So
sure.
yeah, I think whatever gets you the best opportunity to develop yourself as a player and as a person, you should do. If ECNL does that, with that particular team and coach, excellent. If there was a USA, I think they called it USA League in Tampa or in Florida. I'm pretty sure it was like
Yeah,
USA.
that still exists.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure that was what most people would consider a pretty low level. I don't know the club scene as
Uh,
well as.
I, I believe it's quote unquote lower tier based on what's. I mean, you probably don't even know this. There are 25 from my count youth leagues in Florida alone, and that's MLS next, all the way down to whatever the lowest tier is. So it's probably somewhere in the lower scale, probably like level 4 out of 5 type of thing would be my
Yeah,
guess.
so and I'll give you an example. I found one of the one of the best players that, in terms of potential, that I've ever coached. I found playing like in that league on a random day. I mean, uh, it's all about the environment, man. Like, what do you have guidance? So Josh goes pro. People probably don't think that, NAI is going to send a lot of people pro. So Josh goes pro. We're going to get another 2 announced here sometime in the next month or so that are going pro as well. So by the end of January, we'll have 3 that we will turn pro. So like who thought that would happen in the NAI level? So it's way less about is it NAI, and it's more about what is the environment like? Like, what is the staff like? What are Coach Fabian and Coach Tom and Coach Alejandro like? Like, are these guys? Do they know what they're doing? Like, do they care?
Right.
Are they willing to share that knowledge? This is the point. Not, am I playing at the highest tier? Is there value in that? Of course, competition, right?
Yep.
But I can tell you this, no matter what. Going back to that video that we talked about, the jump from club to college, I don't care what level you're playing at. MLS Next Pro, or MLS Next, or whatever. I'm talking with an MLS Next kid right now, and I'm looking at his video and I'm going, he's not ready.
But you can't say that, bro. He's an MLS Next.
Well, yeah.
Impossible. He's got to be close.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the exact point. So, like, I don't know, like, is the environment right for that kid's development? And every person has to make that decision,
right,
themselves. But I think that's the question that they need to ask. Is this environment right for me to help me grow as a player and as a person? And if it is, then great. I mean, Pete, I don't know where all of your kids fall in the or your program falls in all the leagues and stuff, because it's irrelevant to me. Here's what I do know. If Kyle calls me and he says, hey, this kid's a player, you need to look at him, I'm like, send me his stuff. I've got tons of international agencies that are blowing me up. I have tons of people, 450 emails trying to get me to come out to this thing and to this event and this tournament, and blowing me up on WhatsApp, these international agencies, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know them.
It's a diluted market.
So yeah, so it's like, I'm going to take your call every single time. And, I could have somebody, I read an email today, we send the highest tier players to, this is how many we send to NCAA Division I, this is how many we send to NCAA Division II, so basically trying to tell me like, hey, their players are, legit and whatever. And they certainly may be, but is the one that they're sending me legit? I don't know. Is the one that they're sending me a good person? I don't know. What's their upbringing like? I don't know. I don't know these things. So, I'm not going to be enamored by like what level your agency is. Now, again, will I be super interested if you send me somebody? Yeah, because I know you and I know what you're about. I know what they're hearing every day.
So what you're telling me is networking is important, and who's in your circle, so to speak.
Yeah, I think that I think that that's really important, and I think that recognizing why the importance of networking is important is useful as well.
Right.
But ultimately, I think the best exercise that kids can do nowadays, and I think that people can do nowadays, and I'm speaking about myself as well, is just go stand in a mirror. Mm-hmm. Go stand in a mirror, and I've actually challenged my players to do this, and this is actually very difficult. I've never said this publicly, but I will say this here, because I think it's a worthwhile challenge for people. If you're able to go stand in a mirror and look at yourself, not look at yourself like usually when we're in the mirror, we're brushing our hair, we're brushing our teeth, maybe we're putting on a shirt or whatever. I'm talking about look yourself in the eyes. If you're able to stare at yourself in the eyes for 30 seconds or more, then man, like you've got yourself really, really, really well put together. When I do something like that, I see all the inadequacies that I have and the things that I'm trying to improve. Right. And I think that this is what players need to take away from that exercise, is that like, man, I need to improve. I need to grow. And if you do that and you have someone to help guide you on that growth curve and that growth path, yeah, like you're gonna do whatever you want in life, you'll be successftime. So I think that's really important for people. And listen, if you're good enough, most of the time somebody will find you. It doesn't happen all the time. Obviously, we've got a system here that makes that really difficult, but I think that that's probably more indicative of the system and not the people.
Well, I'm glad, going back for a second when you talked about, you're potentially recruiting an MLS Next kid and you don't feel like he's at the level. And I always tell people all the time, I'm like, look, it really doesn't matter what league you play at least until 15 years old, one. But then two, it matters who's one in your circle, and two, who the coach is, because it's the coach that's going to be the guy that will, to your point, like I mentioned with you, help develop you to get to the next step. So if your next step's going to college, and maybe it's Dalton State, maybe it's somewhere else, you got to have somebody that's vested into helping you be successful. Just like you were invested to help Josh and the other guys that you can't name yet to go pro, be successful, because you saw the talent and the potential that they have. And I think a lot of people, especially in the youth game, they get so caught up on the name of the organization, the acronym. Because, like, for example, if you look at MLS Next, they hear the word next. So they think that they're the next superstar, which, okay, fine, it's marketing. But I think for people, using your point of reference, need to understand that, like, it's obviously being in an environment where there's exposure is great, fantastic. But to your point, they got to be a good character. They got to be a good person, and of course, they have to be a good player. Because if they don't have all three, correct me if I'm wrong, you're not going to be interested. If you're missing one of those three, Coach Safe is going to be like, cool, good guy probably, but not for us.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that here's an additional kind of point to make on that. I've told my own players, like when I'm sending my players to be evaluated by professional coaches or in a professional combine, or we're just having that discussion, and they're like, Coach, can you send me to this combine? I know that you know the coach there. Can you send me to their combine, or can you get me a trial there, or whatever? I'm like, hey, you know what's really useful? To be prepared. So like, it's the same thing for me. If a player is playing in a league that gets them enough exposure that I'm going to see them, the question is, are they prepared? Because once I see them, I have my opinion.
Right.
And now, because there are tens and thousands of kids trying to get recruited, if this kid is not who I think meets the standard, I've moved on. Right. So, and again, unless they're 14, 15, 16, where, okay, I might see them again in a year, and then, whatever. But the majority of the time, it's like we're just moving on. So is it more important to have exposure, or is it more important to be prepared? So I think the obvious answer is it's more important to be prepared, right? So then let's ask one more. What's the best way to get prepared? To have more exposure, to have someone guiding you that knows what they're doing and cares enough to guide you?
It's like echoing myself right now. That's funny. It's like, what are we even talking about?
Right.
But I agree, bro. I mean, I think what you just said is the nail on the head. If people are listening to this, or if you're going to listen to this later, what Coach Safe just said is so critically important. Exposure is great if you have the key pieces, if you're prepared. If you're not prepared, then sayonara, your opportunities. Like, let's use the example. Let's say you're looking at a kid, they contacted you, and like, okay, we'll take the risk to go look at this kid, because that's what you do. People send you an email, for example, and you take the risk to go to an event or go to their game and go watch them, right? That's how this works.
Yeah, to some degree, yeah.
Yeah, so some degree. So if you go out there and you watch somebody, maybe you got a couple of people you're going to go check out, and you go watch somebody and you're like, not prepared. I'm going to guess when you say move on, their name is scratched off your list. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's so many. It's like it's not personal, but
it's business.
There might be a kid that has prepared more,
right?
And done more hard work, and they might deserve that opportunity. So we need to try and we can't have it both ways, where we're mad at coaches for not giving us another opportunity, and then we're mad at coaches for not giving us any opportunity. And then, I mean, like, are you prepared? If I'm here, be prepared. If you're not prepared, then I've got to move somewhere else. But then just be prepared for the next coach that might see you. The end all be all is not playing at one school or another. Like, you want to find the right fit, and the truth is that there's probably a couple schools that would give you a great experience, not just one. So yeah, I think that can be useful.
So let's finish this, because I actually got to run. I got to get ready. I got to drive to get to training. But if you don't mind answering this question, David Reed said, define prepared. So if you could give like the 30-second, 1-minute spiel of what that is to you and what it means, because people ask, I would love to know what you think.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big question. So there's different preparation. So like prepared, academically could be one, like what do your grades look like? So have you prepared, have you taken the time to prepare to have maybe a good GPA, for example, or a reasonably solid GPA, because that can tell you something. One of the off the field ones, are you prepared? If I talk to you after a game or before a game, Like, do you have going back to where we started in the conversation, do you have a clear vision of like who you are and what you're trying to do? Do you know what you want to study? Do you know what your goals are? Do you know how you might accomplish those goals? So like, are you prepared to articulate those thoughts?
Right.
Which means for you to articulate them, you will have to have thought about them. And to have thought about them, you'll have probably had to, and to articulate them clearly, you probably need to discuss those with somebody
Right.
that is like a guide mentor.
Right.
So that's your preparation for that type of off the field, maybe conversation with a coach, or maybe giving an email, like writing an email. Are you prepared to write a proper email? And then on the field, I think it would just be exposing the things that you do really well, and doing the simple things. Like, to me, a prepared player looks like a player that's worked hard. So does this player have good technique when they defend? If they defend 1v1, are they side on with an athletic stance and watching the ball and not watching the player? That would tell me that because that doesn't happen, babies are born and defend that way. So that would tell me that they've done some level of preparation. What about if you're an attacking player and you receive the ball into space and you're isolated 1v1? Like, are you decisive? You get the ball, you put your head down, you take a couple step overs, change direction, and then deliver to the person that you picked out on the back post. If you do that, now if that happens once, and maybe it could be luck, if you do that 2 or 3 times in a game, my guess is that you've probably stood around with somebody and worked on that. Or in other words, you prepared for that moment of exposure elsewhere on the training pitch, right? So this is the type of preparedness that we're talking about. Is you can have an off the field preparedness to having this clear vision of what it is that you want to do and your ability to articulate that. And then your on the field preparedness is if you execute an action on the field, a defensive header, an attacking header, driving 1v1 at somebody, defending 1v1, giving cover to a player that's challenging. That's another one that people don't even think about. You go up for a header, and if someone's there to watch me play, and if you're the right back and I'm the right center back, like, did I slide over to cover you in case that you don't win that header? If I don't, and I'm just watching you, I reckon that he's prepared. He's not watching me film to think about that or done any of those activities, or he's just not cared enough to do it. So I think the preparedness is, it's like a whole ocean. It's like everything that you do, you'll be able to tell if it's the first time that you've done that with somebody. I think one way to look at it, do I sound and do you sound? Do we sound like people that have just thought about these ideas today? The way that we're articulating, with clear decisiveness, does it and intent and purpose, does it sound like we just came up with this today? And if it did sound like we just came up with it today to somebody, then surely we weren't prepared. And if it sounds like no, it sounds like these people have thought about these things deeply over the course of their lives and their careers, then that probably took some amount of preparation. So I think it comes through and shines through in everything that you do. That's.
I don't think I could have said it better myself, to be honest.
Yeah,
I think you hit that nail on the head.
Question.
Yeah, I hope you. I think you did. So, but I'm sure me and Safe talk all the time, probably at least once a week. I'm sure we'll do another call again or some way to keep trying to help people make better decisions. Anything, bro, count on me, and we'll get Coach Safe. So I was just saying, I appreciate everything that you're doing and the impact that you're making and helping people be better as people and players. And then I'm sure we'll have you on, or we'll have another conversation, maybe over the break, because you'll probably have some Christmas break or at least holiday break. We'll probably do another one for you guys, just because I think the content in this is just phenomenal, and I think people should, hopefully listen and take it to heart, because it'll make a difference in the long run. So I appreciate you, bro. I got to run.
Yeah, happy to do it anytime, and appreciate you too and all that you're doing as well. And yeah, we'll talk soon.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you, bro. I'll talk to you.
All right, see you.